Hey guys, it's Bree and Alan here with the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.
And today we had a great conversation around all sorts of things. We started talking about yoga and how yoga ties into life and living a congruent life, living a life that is worth living. And you'll hear more in this episode, so please enjoy. Feel free to send us comments or questions. You can find us on all our channels, Spotify, Apple, whatever it is that you're on. Please hit the subscribe button. Please leave a review, star, and comment rating. It all helps. And also share with anyone and everyone who you think can benefit from our talks. Also, a huge thank you to Brianna Cote, who does all of our photography, as well as the Allison Band, Alllyson band, for our intro and outro music. And then, most of all, huge gratitude and thank you to everyone listening. Your support means the world to us, and we appreciate it. And with that, enjoy your episode. Good morning, Brie.
Good morning.
How are you doing this lovely morning?
Oh, I'm drinking my fancy AeroPress coffee, the
I
perfect
love
cup.
it. What does your mug say?
It says, "You're my favorite weirdo. XO, your BFF," and it was from my BFF of my friend Katie, who I went to junior high, high school, and college
Mm-hmm.
with.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and neither of us had sisters. We both had brothers. So it was like,
Uh-huh.
you know, that connection of having a gal pal.
Yeah.
But she came to my Chico Hot Springs retreat 2 falls ago, and
Cool.
she brought that for me. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Those gifts are fun. Those gifts mean a lot.
Yeah. And it's
That's great.
do you have your one mug that you drink your
I
coffee out
do.
of?
I do. So right now I'm using a travel mug
Okay.
because we talked for a while and I don't drink it as fast
Yeah.
and it gets cooler and I prefer my coffee molten lava hot. So I use my travel mug often when we record.
Hmm.
But every morning and then every night I drink out of this mug, and it just has my initial A on
Yeah.
it. But it's not about that. My uncle bought it for me,
Okay.
and um, and yeah, that's it. My uncle. He's like my father,
Yeah.
and he's been there through my entire life, um, and it's funny. I've tried switching it out.
Hmm.
Like I can't use another mug. If I use another mug, it's my travel mug.
Yeah.
I've bought 2 mugs that I love, that I absolutely love, and but I just using them is just feels weird. One of them, it says "Wake up, be awesome, repeat,"
Hmm.
and then the other one is a. This one is partly due to size. So my favorite book is actually "Oh, the Places You'll Go" by Dr. Seuss,
Yeah.
and I found a mug, and it's the little guy, the little character in the book with balloons floating through the sky, and it says, "Oh, the places you'll go."
Yeah.
But the mug is just small, so
Yeah.
in addition to my coffee being molten lava hot, it needs to be a gallon of coffee.
It's super
And
size.
yeah, so yeah, it is funny. And I've thought, because I hand wash the coffee cup because I use it multiple times a day, and uh, I have this fear of breaking it. I've slammed it into the counter a few times, or I've dropped it in the sink.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I have this fear of breaking it, but I also know that could happen, and I still use it because it's funny. I don't know what was I talking to someone, I forget what happened, but it was like, oh, I saved this bottle of wine for a special occasion. Like, no, the special occasion is now.
Yeah.
Like, you're alive.
Yeah.
Like, use that shit. Like,
Wait,
you know,
what are you waiting for? It's like
right,
when people are like, I'm going to do all these things when I retire. You
right.
know, I think we've talked about that, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
recorded or not. But
Mm-hmm.
well, I have a kind of, speaking of you're my favorite weirdo, I have a little
Yeah.
weirdo thing.
Yeah.
Um, and you tell me your about yourself in this world, because
Okay.
I know you drink tea. I
Mm-hmm.
can't drink tea. I have a special cup for my tea. Like I will not drink my
Mm.
coffee and tea out of the same cup. So
Oh,
I have
you
a
are a weirdo.
specific mug for tea, and there's no real actual special um, significance behind. It was a gift, and it has my initial and has this cool like floral or paisley design or something on it. It feels very like a teacup because it's got a little handle thing,
Mm.
and it's a really cool mug, and
Yeah.
it's my tea mug, and
Mm.
there's something mentally where the because actually travel mugs will start to hold the smell. And so like you don't like I remember trying to drink tea out of my coffee travel mug, and then there's that like
Mm-hmm.
tinge of coffee in
Yeah.
it. And so that's I don't think these regular ceramic mugs do that, but there's this like mental association of like, nope, I want my tea to taste like
Yeah.
coffee, not like or like tea, not this little remnants of
Mm-hmm.
coffee. And I had a guest stay with us, and I made coffee, and I didn't pick out mugs for people. I let them go get it, and I saw her grab my tea mug.
Did you have a mini heart attack?
I was like, no, no. But I didn't say anything. I was like, whatever, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's really not a big deal. But in my head, I was like, no, that's my tea mug.
Contaminated.
But I was like, if you didn't want her to drink out of your tea mug, you should have picked a mug out for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. It just that makes me. I'll talk about that in a second, but that makes me think of uh, the whole yoga mat thing. I don't know if we've talked about this on episodes before, but when right, like you're a yogi and you roll out your yoga mat,
Mm,
that's your yoga mat. Like no one touches it, no one walks on it.
mm.
Right? Like I remember like getting into yoga before. This was like the whole time up until teacher training, and you're just like someone touches your mat or steps on your mat, and you're like, how dare you, right? Like, and it's just it's awful, right? Like you think the worst of this person. It's totally not yoga at all, right? Like that's my mat. How dare they touch it with their bare feet or whatever?
Yeah.
And then you go through yoga teacher training, uh, and like the teacher's teaching, just like put random people on your mat, and everyone's touching everyone's mats, and you like get used to that real quick. And
Yeah.
uh, I just taught a class recently, and it was packed, and like I was like, guys, like you got to get over this whole people touching
Your
your mat. Like
island.
I'm gonna be walking on your mat, yeah, I'm gonna be walking on your mat. Other people are gonna be touching your mat.
Yeah.
So I get that like that mini heart attack feeling. You absolutely should have picked out her mug or said, "Oh, not that one." No, not that
Then
one.
I would have to explain my weirdo-ness of like, that's a tea mug, actually. You
Yes.
can't tell by the small little handle, the dainty handle for tea.
The dainty handle where you have to like put your pinky out too while
Yeah.
you drink it. Yes. Uh, yeah. So the coffee with like travel mugs and plastic,
Hmm.
right? Like definitely it holds the flavor. Metal, I think it does, because what's funny is this: even when I wash it, like the metal inside is like stained, like a
Yeah.
darker
I
color
have
for
like
sure.
A Yeti
Mm-hmm.
travel mug, and it's like, nope, this is full on coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't, I don't notice it, and I don't mind it. Even my ceramic mug is stained
Mm,
like dark from coffee,
yeah.
but I do drink my tea out of it.
Okay.
What is so when I used to have a Keurig,
Hmm.
and I would make right, so like you use the little pods for coffee,
Yeah.
and then when I wanted tea, I would just not put a pod in,
Hmm.
and as it runs through, it still like picks up
Yeah.
like flavors and hints of coffee.
Hmm.
So like that was a thing. Now I use an electric kettle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've definitely gotten rid of that. But you're not a weirdo for that. I get that. I get that.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
The other funny thing with yoga, you said the yoga mat, but there's the yoga spot in the classroom too.
100%. They took my spot.
It's like they walk in, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, meltdown! My spot is taken.
Yeah. Or it's even before that. Like, I gotta leave. I gotta get there early. Oh my God, I'm running late because someone's gonna take my spot.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and you get there, no one's there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're still there 20 minutes
You
early.
set
so
your mat
still
up
have
and you
your
leave the room.
yeah. It's funny because I'll have my Sunday class at G1 gets really busy, and it it's a smaller room,
Yeah.
and so people text me all the time. Will you set me up a mat? Can you set me up in the corner? Can you set me up by the
Oh my
window?
gosh, yeah.
And I think it's funny. Like, I'll do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, because I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Like, we like our comfort.
Yeah.
We like our I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but we just like.
Well, and I will say there still is this there is a barrier to yoga still. People are very intimidated by it. And so it's like, okay, if having your spot is gonna help you feel more comfortable coming into
Yes.
something that doesn't feel comfortable, like great, like fine,
Yes.
we're kind of
100%.
making fun of it, but it's not to say, at some point maybe you'll get brave enough to like switch spots, or you'll walk in, someone's in your spot, and you're like, well, this is happening, and you'll realize like that's okay.
Yeah.
But I do
Even
think there's still a really big intimidation or barrier factor
yes,
to
100%,
yoga.
100% agree. A few things on that. Actually, I want to write it down because I don't want to forget any points. So the whole packed room thing, that's like I'm noticing, because again, the rooms that I teach in they're good sizes, but like they get busy, and that's a big one, right? You'll see people walk in to a packed room, and like you see like the like you just visibly see the mental anguish that they're going through,
Yeah.
and how it translates into, right, the physical body. And that's, it's fun to see because it's like, hey, like it's all right, right? Like, you're good, you got this. But then also, like, with people, once they're set up, so oftentimes I have to move people, or I have to make people move in my classes to get more people in.
Yeah.
And this happened. So a lot of my students are at G1 are already conditioned to this. So like they know, right, and they'll move without much coercion. Whereas Yoga Junction opened, and it was it was a room full of like new people, and the room was packed with like 20 people in it, and I was like, nope. I was like, there's like 1 foot gaps between mats here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, move closer. Like, the people would like move their mat like a half an inch.
Yeah.
And then like get back on their mat and think that that was okay. So that's fun. And what sucks about that is when you're that person, that late person coming in, right? Like, you feel like you don't belong, right? Like, and it's almost like you're not welcome. And like, that's why, like, I'll never turn someone away. I'll make people move like mat to mat, and because there is people are scared of yoga. The barrier is so big, and I want everyone to feel welcome, and it can be tough, and it's like, sometimes I'll say, oh, make room for your fellow yogis. Like, imagine if it was you.
Yeah.
Like, what if you walked in, and how would you feel? Yeah. So there's that. And then this yoga teacher that I know, she's a great yoga teacher, and I absolutely respect her. There's no but, there's no however. She did make a post on social media the other day that was talking about what she thought yoga wasn't, and it was like blasting hip hop music, and I was like, I felt attacked because like
Mm,
I totally do that in my class, but I'm good with it. And and that's I still don't know my whole coherent thoughts on it, but and then she was like, what is yoga? And it's like, yoga is sacred, and I believe yoga is sacred, and my goal is to make it so comfortable that everyone is willing to walk into that room.
yeah.
And if that's playing hip hop music and playing rock music and and doing whatever to make people feel comfortable, like to help them create that sacred space, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. It's funny, I saw something similar, maybe it was like the
Hmm.
same thing reposted. This
Hmm.
woman, she's not a
Might
yoga
be the same person.
teacher.
Oh, okay. We know the same
She
people.
said, when did yoga become blasting hip hop, Pilates moves, and doing crunches?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want like the real, I want like the call, whatever she said, the yoga. I
Hmm.
want
Hmm.
this yoga back,
Hmm.
and I personally, my yoga is not is there's no music typically unless I end up like putting on, and this is my morning sadhana. So sadhana is like
Hmm.
a daily practice. And my own practice is has shifted because of the trainings I've been in, but also because of the experiences I've had. And I've had moments where I'm in my sadhana where I've been like, oh, I miss doing something that maybe is a little more strength building or this or that. And I've had to reflect on, okay, well, these things were really great for my running, and I don't do weightlifting. And so there were pieces of my daily yoga practice that I don't have in my sadhana anymore. And it was really just a self-reflection of, I can still do those things if I want,
Hmm.
because yoga is simply union. And
Yeah, that's it.
so all it is being present and in alignment with every moment. And granted, a lot of the Amrit Institute practices, you move into following prana and energy. And we had a little experience offline of that might go online at some point.
Hmm.
And so you move from energy following attention, which is what we do in a typical yoga class, right? We're in a pose, we bring our attention to an area of the body of the pose, like sensation or whatnot, and energy follows it. And with
Hmm.
Amrit Institute, there's a thing called conscious crossover, where your attention starts to follow energy, follows prana. And so prana can be a thought popping up, it can be just a movement in your body, drawn into a certain sensation. But it can look very different. Like sometimes I joke, I'm like, I'm just rolling around on the ground. Like if someone looked
Hmm.
at that, they're like, that's not yoga, right? Because like there's days
Yep.
it's just literally like I look like probably like a cat rolling around on the ground doing whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but all that to say, coming back to the post, was like, I understand how yoga in the Western world has become a workout and has
Hmm.
lost the essence of it. And for a lot of people, yoga has potentially has been counterproductive in that it might create more of this power through, push through, um,
Hmm.
feeds our already established unconscious habits of needing to do it right, needing to not nail the pose, whatever those pieces are. And so I think it
Hmm.
isn't necessarily, it isn't about the pose. I don't necessarily think it's about music or not. and there's
Right.
preference there. I see, again, what you're saying is like maybe there's approachability because someone's favorite tune is playing, or they get like
Right.
really amped up about that. Um, but it's how it's being presented
Mm-hmm.
in the class, right? And
Yeah.
that's like I agreed with that gal. I was like, I feel you, but like I'm also, this is what I'm seeking out. Like I'm seeking out this.
Yeah.
I my sadhana is on the mat. It's also out in the real world, and it's always returning back to that inner peace. And that's not to say it's without the turbulence of life, right? But
Right.
it's how do I establish that inner connection to prana, to energy, to my inner wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
personally, it is a bit harder when there's music going on to like
Mm-hmm.
really come in, connect to prana, to energy when there's stimulation. And again,
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say that a class with that doesn't serve its purpose and isn't a stepping stone, um,
Yeah.
or allow for an experience of yoga. It's just different. And
Yeah.
I will say, like, I actually commented, I don't comment much, but I said, I made some comment like, I've always said if I want a cardio workout, I'm going to go for a run. And that's really what I've seen a lot of Western yoga is like, it's become about the workout.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, there's great benefits to it as a workout,
100%.
but that's not yoga, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it
Absolutely.
can be, but it also, asana, physical poses and movements is not yoga if it's not embedded in that union, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of 8 limbs.
Yeah.
It right, like asana is yoga, right? And it's just like just because right, like it's the dichotomy of hunter and hippie, right? Like um I agree, but then I think it's like a bigger conversation that we're having. And I appreciate that. Right? Like it's asana is absolutely one part of it. And I love it because it gets people in the door,
Hmm.
right? And at least for my classes, right? I can't speak for everyone else, but like the classes that I teach, it gets people in the door. And then the people that stick around quickly realize it's not about the pose,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it's a small part of it. And right, and yeah, you're right. Like the music, it can be a distraction, but it also can be like, when I see when a guy comes in and he's wearing a Metallica shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and then next week I put a Metallica song on the playlist,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm like, oh, that one's for you, buddy,
Yeah.
right? Like it's offering this like, hey, you're in this safe space,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, yeah, maybe it's not looked into further, and it's like, hey, like, yeah, cool, he's playing Metallica in a yoga class, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's also I'm welcome here, and you know it allows you to let your guard down,
Mm-hmm.
and what is coming up, what can I deal with in here,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the physical practice can make us reflect or bring our awareness to other sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I think that there is a portion of it that is just like, and I'm gonna say it because I'm not a fan, but like core power yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm talking shit, whatever. Right, like it is. It's just this like it's this very basic. All the teachers are trained the same, and it's this very basic, yoga flow that's hot and sweaty, and um, it is very much like what we're talking about. And if that works for people, then great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to knock anyone's experience. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, and I do think what you've said and what you said it without saying it is everyone's practice evolves,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I started, it was all about the physical,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was all about the poses and nailing poses and, right? Like, I got to get into that pose.
Yeah.
And what do I got to do to get into that pose? And how can I do this? And scorpion, I got to get into scorpion next. And now, like, I haven't even said the word scorpion in forever. Like, I think about doing that, I'm like, ow, no, I'm good. Like, no chance. But yeah, and my practice has evolved way more spiritually, and so it's interesting. I think what yoga isn't is I think what yoga is a much longer list than what it isn't. And just what it isn't is, in this post that this teacher shared, she said it's not getting people to believe like what you believe, which I think is huge. I believe many yoga teachers use this platform as a political opportunity to voice and enforce their political beliefs on people.
Yeah.
Right, but I also believe that it's not like, I joke and I say in my class, like, you can come and if you just laid in Shavasana for 60 minutes, like, right on.
So that's union, right? So that's that's that idea of, I feel like laying in Shavasana for 60 minutes, but instead I'm going to disregard that and I'm going to do this other practice that I'm being told to do. And that's practicing in conflict with yourself, and that's not union. And so that's what it's like, music or no music, how it is the practice of yoga is like, from a, I don't even know if this would be a science perspective, but like being in flow, right? Like being in that total unified state with where you are moment by moment. And so lying in Shavasana is more yoga. I don't, if I were to, I'm not saying it's good or bad, right? It's not better than powering through. And maybe that day it's all in, right? So maybe that day you needed to power through to learn a lesson of some sort, or to power through to realize like, oh, I'm not superhuman and I can't always keep doing that, because you leave feeling exhausted, whatever it might be, whatever shows up that day. But right, it's truly connecting to every moment, undistorted, right, and honoring that. And if you don't, that's yoga too, because you're at least being knowingly aware that you're not honoring it, I would say, is yoga too, because you're connected to the fact that you're not honoring where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's awareness. And
but being knowingly aware, because we're always there's always, this is like something that's been powerful for me that I learned recently, is there's always awareness. Awareness is always there. It's being unknowingly aware, being knowingly aware. And what I mean by this is, I think we talked about this maybe in our little side episode, is in deep sleep, you're aware, there's awareness, but you're unknowingly aware. But awareness had to be there, because when you woke up, how do you know that you were sleeping? Awareness was there. But then another example is when you're driving on the highway, you zone out and you miss your exit. Right? So that's being
highway hypnosis.
That's another unknowingly example of being unknowingly aware in a more conscious state, right, than deep sleep, is that. And we do that a lot. How often are you just on autopilot doing things that you do all the time, but your mind is somewhere else?
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, again, awareness is constantly there. The differentiator is being unknowingly aware or being knowingly aware.
Yeah, I set the autopilot sometimes. Like, I'll be driving to go do something, and it's different than what I typically would do.
Yeah.
But I set the autopilot for the normal thing.
Yeah.
And it's like the same like route, the same like driving directions. And like I'm going and like I'll miss the exit. I'm like, wait a second. I'm not doing that one thing.
Yeah.
Oh crap. I'm doing this other thing. And I'm supposed to get off there.
Yeah.
right? Or I'm supposed to, oh, turn here, turn there. Yeah. So,
Or like I run
totally get it.
downstairs to get something and I get down there and I'm like, what did I come down here to get? What am I like? Where was I
That's
that I like thought of something, went to go do it, and in that short 1 minute period, I already just like checked out and forgot what I was going to do.
that's just you getting old, Brie. You're just
No, I'm not
your
getting
brain's
old.
aging, and no, I know. It is. It's it right. Like people say it's age, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of something else, or you're thinking of something else. Your mind isn't in that same spot.
Yeah. Pew, pew,
And
pew, 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 pew.
yes, yeah, and people think it's age because like as we get older, it starts to happen more. But what's happening is our mind is more places, or it's trying to be more places.
And we allow it.
Right?
We feed that.
Yeah.
We feed
Yes.
that
Mm-hmm.
habit, right? It's just like
Mm-hmm.
training. It's
Yep.
if we feed the ability to hop from one thing to the other instead of redirecting to focus, redirecting to focus, redirecting to focus, then
Yeah.
that's what will take over as a
Mm-hmm.
neural pathway, as a unconscious pattern.
For sure. So back to yoga and being in union, and I want to change this subject slightly, but link it to what we were talking about before we started recording.
Okay.
Unless you have something else to add.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So, right, like we talked about like being in union and like doing the things that, right, your body wants to do or, right, like needs to do, and being, right, like I think of it as incongruence or out of congruence. And when you're flowing, like it feels good. Like when you're doing the things that you feel like you should be doing
Mm-hmm.
and that you need to be doing, like it feels good. Right? Maybe it is like a big physical, deep power practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but maybe it's laying in shavasana or somewhere in the middle. And that relates to, right, yoga. I always say yoga is just a practice, right? Yoga is what prepares us. Like the thing that we do on our mat is just a practice. It's what prepares us for everything else in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? It prepares us for real yoga. It prepares us for work, relationships, our self-doubt, our self-thoughts, our self-deception, or right, the things that we believe we need to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we show up on our mat, it's just preparation for everything that's going to happen, right? And knowing that life's going to happen and being prepared for that. And so I think that's a great example and a great segue into what I was telling you about this morning. You asked how I was doing, and I was like, good, like really good. And and I have my moments, right? We go through highs and lows, but I'm feeling really good because um, I'm I left my corporate job and I'm doing my own thing, building my business, and what I said was like I really feel in tune and in congruence with like
Mm-hmm.
what I need in my life, and it's because I don't have this looming thought or tasks of this other thing that I don't enjoy doing, and and that's energy. That's energy spent, right? That's energy spent on one having to do those tasks,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also energy spent when you're not doing those tasks or if you're putting them off. It's this energy of shit, like this guilt or whatever it is you may be feeling of like I have to do those things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so now I feel like I was writing this morning and my writing, like I just feel really good about my writings lately. And I feel really good about the way I'm connecting with people lately and how I'm helping people and how I'm serving people. Right. And like I'm showing up as my best self because I don't have to spend this energy doing this other thing, or there's not um, this thought, this looming. What did you call it? This looming,
I don't know.
like this looming anxiety,
Told you
this
about my
looming
memory
fear.
like two
Yeah,
seconds ago.
yeah.
You think I remember something from 40 minutes ago?
This right. There's not this looming anxiety
Mm-hmm.
that is just there, like killing my energy. And yeah, like it's and then you brought up, right, there's this looming anxiety of doing it all yourself, and that's a different kind of anxiety.
And it feels
But
different. It does.
hmm
It is a different feeling. And this is what I will say is perhaps it's a different feeling because it's in alignment versus out of alignment.
hmm
An anxiety that is, and I wouldn't say that I experience like anxiety, but I'm like, oh man, I could be like, it doesn't physiologically show up and it doesn't control me. But
hmm
I'll be like, oh man, I could be doing these things to really continue ramping up my business or this, that, and the other. And I left corporate to not work 60, 70 hours a week. So I'm not going to do that in my self employment.
hmm
But I think the feeling we're we're going to have like parts of our job that we don't enjoy per se. We're going to have worries will come up, things like that. Our expectations will come up, or it's part of the human experience. But the difference is when that pressure or whatever arises is in alignment, it just feels different than when it's out. And it was while you were talking, I wrote down a few things of as you left your corporate job, right? It feels like now you're more in this flow potentially. Like it feels good.
hmm
And I'm not, I think that's a sign where you are at was a sign of like you were out of alignment.
100%.
And I also want to note you can still be in union, be at peace, have inner peace if you're in making choices that are out of alignment. And I think that
hmm
is hard.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, also just listen and make that leap because there's the fear, the ego fear that's like not making you transition out of. But also knowing you can still find and be at peace doing this thing you hate. And that's
hmm
like a big part of personally for me, yoga is moving beyond the controls of preference. We
hmm
will still have preference, but I'm not living miserably when that preference is not being met or not met.
Yeah.
When we choose for and against, and we are driven by that, then when we're in something that we're against, we're miserable and we're waiting for the next thing to make us happy instead of being here and finding that joy here.
hmm
And I had someone in my life recently share they've been in a job that they haven't been very happy about. And he shared with me that he's like, yeah, this week I was really grateful for my job. It was really interesting, like different feeling. And he said it, I don't know what it was specifically, but I think there's a part of it like hearing all these layoffs that are happening and knowing that I still have a job. And then also that it's afforded me to do all of these things in my life, pursue certain things. The financial stability has allowed him to pursue these certain things in his life that are really important to him as well. And it was just
hmm
really cool to see like this thing for months that's been felt a certain way and how with the job hasn't changed, his boss hasn't changed, the pressures haven't changed. What has changed
hmm
is his relationship to it.
Yep.
And I think
His
that's something to
perspective.
like emphasize is like, I'm not saying you should have stayed in your job, right? Like,
hmm
there's a
hmm
point, either way would have been the right decision, whether you stayed or not.
Yes. hmm
But what we have the power in is our relationship to it. And
Absolutely.
then if we're in a conflicting relationship with it, it's going to drain our energy.
Hmm.
If we can shift into a um, out of conflict with it, something might change, but sometimes it means leaving. It's like, don't stay in an
Absolutely.
abusive relationship to
Hmm.
prove that you can be at peace with someone hitting you. Like,
Right.
that's not what I'm saying.
Hmm.
But right, what do we have control over? Our own relationship to what is.
Yeah. And our choice, right? How we choose to view that and look at that, and then the actions we take going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I was thinking about this. I talk about that choice a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't right like I don't get any feedback on this, so I don't know. But I can only right like I have my own inner self talk of like, oh, what have I been through, right? And I've been through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and I choose because people do ask me all the time, like, oh, how are you so positive? And it's not that I'm positive. It's just life happens. I know life happens, and uh, and it's part of the journey, and it's making me who I am, and I choose to find the beauty in the hardship. Um, and for when you look at someone like Viktor Frankl, who right, he was a Holocaust survivor. And if you haven't read his book, we've mentioned it many times in this podcast, right? A Man's Search for Meaning. He he talks about this, right? Like you can take everything from a man, but his choices, right? His choice to be who he says and wants to be. And this is from someone who went through one of the craziest things that you could probably ever go through in life, right? Like living in a concentration camp and watching people be slaughtered. Um, and right, so maybe, and my point in saying all that is he found peace there, right? It's relating it to what you're saying, right? He found peace there. Was he happy about where he was? No, right? No one would be, but he found peace in that space. And so maybe whatever you're going through, whether it's divorce or losing friends or starting a new journey of a job or whatever it may be, right? Like the death of a loved one, you have a choice. And it's not that it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It is simple, but it's not easy. And you can find peace there. And you can find peace in medical issues and all the things, and it's up to you. No one can help you see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just suggest is if any conflict you have outside of yourself is typically a reflection of a conflict you have inside. So if there's a
Mm-hmm.
conflict outside of yourself, look inside.
Yeah, and that's where yoga comes
I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Is just lie in shavasana for 60 minutes.
in. Mm-hmm.
If that's what's presenting itself, right? If you practice conflict in the mat, you're going to practice conflict in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Where else are you doing something you don't want to do because you feel like you should, or someone told you that, or you don't want people to judge you for not participating in the way that you think they think you should?
Yep.
It's your own conflict. It's no one else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we take our power back when we start making those choices ourselves, and we become more powerful and more embodied
Well, it's
when
always
we
our
decide to
own
be.
choice. We just like to
Mm-hmm.
say that it was someone else's.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, the teacher told me to do it. You chose to do it. We passed the buck a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to take responsibility and accountability for our own actions. And it can be hard. And it can be hard when you're not used to doing that, or when you've passed the buck for so long and you feel like all these external factors are maybe going against you, or so. But when you start to live in congruence with, when everything starts to mesh and flow, like, it's a great feeling.
And nothing in the external world can change, and you can. And when you were sharing, I wrote down accepting life. And so when you said something about when someone said how are you so positive? What made me think is it's like not being positive. It's that you're accepting life as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, right? The range of experiences of life, and accept that acceptance.
Yeah. I've been talking a lot about this week in yoga. I've been talking a lot about what you resist persists and what you embrace dissolves. And we've taken it even deeper, right? To, right, like, how can you embrace life? How can you do exactly what you just said? Accept life for what it is. How can you embrace the feelings? You know, those feelings of sadness or happiness or joy or whatever, right? Because a lot of people have trouble being happy, right? How can you? Those feelings are knocking on the door, and we want to shut them out. We want to put up our walls, and we don't want to let them in. But what happens, right? How's that working for you? One, I know how it's working for me. It's not. Okay. When I resist it, it's not great. But like, what happens if we let it in? We sit it down, we serve it coffee, we make it a meal, right? We befriend it. We're open to the possibility of what happens when it is in our life, right? And this morning is where, like, I was, because again, I've been talking about it a lot. I even made a post on Instagram about it, and it's really been resonating with people, and I've just been and I've been thinking more about it. And this morning, I thought about, like, move towards it, right? Don't even wait for it to knock on the door, right? Go out there and find it, right? Find what it is that life is going to happen, right? Because the thing that you want, right? The thing that you ultimately want is on the other side of that.
What is that?
And that depends, right? Like, yeah, that depends. What do you want, right? Because if it's something different, right? If that thing that you want is something that you've never had before, right? You have to move through those emotions that come up as you work towards getting it. Does that make sense?
I don't know.
So
I'm trying to process it.
Yeah. Let me try to think of right. Let's say.
Are you talking, because we were talking about letting happiness in, and so I didn't know if you were talking about the thing being happiness or actual, like, achieve, like, what, I didn't know what you meant by thing. Whatever's on the other side.
Yeah. It applies to all of that, right? It applies to happiness. It applies to achieving a goal, right? Be it, like, if it's a material thing, if it's lifting a heavy weight, if it's climbing a mountain, right? There's a journey to get to that, right? There's a journey to get to happiness. There's a journey, right, to get to the goal, the milestone, whatever it is that you are looking to get to. And on that journey is, right, the road that you have to travel. That's where we experience the feelings of self-doubt, right? The thoughts that you're not good enough, the people who are going to judge you and criticize the work that you're doing. And it's not about, what I'm saying is, it's not about resisting those. You have to experience that. That's part of the acceptance of life, right? Like, let's use happiness, right? So we're not using, right, because like happiness is a choice, right? And we should all be happy, but there are people out there like, you can't be happy all the time. Well, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And what is on the way to happiness, right? And how can you be happy all the time? How can you be happy when life is being all lifey,
Mm-hmm.
right?
But wouldn't you
And
say
it's
that's not a journey to happiness? It's like that's what's coming up for me is you're talking
mm-hmm,
about on your way to happiness, on your journey to happiness. And
mm-hmm,
what comes up for me is that oftentimes we're in misery and seeking happiness because we forget that we can have happiness. Like it exists always. It's always there. It's
yeah,
just whether we choose it.
yeah. What would you call that?
Call what?
That process of you're in
Presence.
misery,
Nothing's wrong with this moment. This is one of my teachers
right?
says. Nothing is wrong with this moment until you think about it. Nothing is
Yes.
wrong with this moment. This moment is
Mm-hmm.
perfect until you think about it.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like that's always there.
And that's a journey for many people. And then when you get there,
But you'll
I think
never
that
get there.
to you'll never get to this is perfect in this moment.
No,
Yes, you will.
the seek like the if I do the journey of happiness is happiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like we're saying the same thing, but in a different way. Because right, like we're all seeking happiness, and if you're constantly looking for it, right, and if it's constantly out there, right, and like for those not watching, I'm like reaching out there, right? It's yes, you're never gonna get it. The journey is realizing that it's here.
Okay. So that's what because I don't see it as seeking. It's semantics, but
Yeah,
it's remembering.
yeah, but that's a journey.
Eh, we only experience this
Because
moment, so it's like it's a I think it's a moment by moment
so
choice to be
yeah,
present, choose
yes,
happiness.
and I think that can be difficult for a lot of people
Hmm.
because we're taught to always like, oh, if I have this, if I achieve
Yeah.
this, if I accomplish this,
Hmm.
right? So the journey that I'm trying to say is getting them back to this moment,
Okay.
right? It is a journey because let's say you've just been conditioned to always believe that like I need to get to this next step.
Hmm.
I need to get to there to be happy. Right? Well, now we want to recondition you into right recondition the mind, the body to know that like this moment is where happiness is. This moment and whether it's sadness, you could still be happy. Whether right like there's happiness in all of life in this present moment. And that's the journey is realizing like happiness doesn't exist out there. I need to find it here in this moment. Am I making more sense? Or
Yeah.
I love this conversation, by the way.
No, it's good. I see it differently, and that's okay. And it's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of of words. Again, we're saying the
Yeah.
same thing. We see it or visualize it or experience the concept of it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's cool is like we all can have our own ways of coming and pointing to the same thing.
Yep. Because like if you think about, right, let's say someone who isn't happy or who says they're not happy, you know, it's hard to convince them to just be like, no, happiness is just in this moment, right? Like you wouldn't just say that and like then they're like, oh yeah, I got it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you don't just say that to them once and they're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? And boom, now they're happy all the time in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's it's a journey of 10,000 steps that begins one step at a time. right? And it's,
Are you trying to
there's
convince me
happiness.
to see your way?
No, not
I'm
at all.
joking.
Not at
Let
all.
me
Yes,
explain this journey in a different way, and maybe you'll agree with me.
No, I'm just
I'm
trying to
joking.
give
I know.
more light. No, I know. I know. I'm just trying to add more light to it in that. And yeah, I agree that we can all see things differently. And then, right, there's the journey of 10,000 steps happens one step at a time, but it can be up a mountain, through a desert, it can be in a circle. You can be finishing your 8-mile hike that only clocked on your Strava for 7.8 miles in the parking lot. But yeah, and then that applies towards your goals too, right? If you are trying to achieve this thing, right? Happiness, you have to experience the things along. That's where I was getting to, is that you're gonna run into those feelings, those thoughts along the way, and you still have to embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the moments of silence. For many, silence is so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so juicy.
Mm-hmm. What else you got for me?
I don't know how we don't have to dive into this, but I do I guess we can touch on it a little bit. And you said it as you were talking through the start of the journey to happiness.
See, it is a journey. You believe me.
Yeah.
All right. Conversation over.
And I guess it's around, you started this conversation by saying that for a lot of people, it's not even letting happiness into their life. It's not even necessarily avoiding sad, the quote unquote negative emotions but even the quote unquote positive
Mm-hmm.
emotions. And I think there's this culture of complaining and stress that exists that has conditioned us.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by this, and I have to catch my own self and practice this, is like we can't even say oftentimes like how good we are. Like we feel almost like bad to say that like life is freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and or we say that something is going well, but
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, what is that? I don't know when this was, when I first started to catch it, and it was a lot easier to catch it in emails, because I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'll just say a retreat. This is just a hypothetical situation. I'm like, oh, how'd the retreat go? Oh, it was really great, but it rained, so we couldn't do this, that, and the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've said this on here before, and I've it's in some of my newsletters. But what if you switch that but to and? How would it
Mm-hmm.
change? Maybe you even say the same thing. You don't even change the clause afterwards, but you switch it to and,
Mm-hmm.
or switch it to and what can you say after? Like, why do we have to downplay our successes? Why do we have to downplay like how good life is? And it's almost like there's this pride in things being hard,
Mm-hmm.
or life being tough or stressful, or reasons to complain. And yeah, I don't know, it's really interesting that there always seems to be a little bit of this not fully embracing like the happiness.
Mm-hmm.
and notice, just like see when you're in conversations with people where they like downplay themselves. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, my presentation went really well, but
Mm-hmm.
or
I
like
see it
we're
often.
afraid to say that also, just like, man, my life is freaking awesome. Like,
Yeah.
couldn't be better. And what is that? Is that, yeah, I'm just very fascinated by why that culture has established itself in our society.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that was well said. Um, we do. We're always looking for why it isn't perfect, and that's part of my mantra: the work for what you want, then go get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the then go get it part. It's the life is good, and I worked my ass off for it,
Mm-hmm.
and we should be proud of that, and we should embrace that. We should feel all of it, the good, the bad, right? Like the quote, the good, the bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just be, and when things are difficult, embracing that too and accepting that. And I think that, like, we downplay ourselves all the time, and I'm catching it more in other people, which is helping me catch it more in myself.
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm trying to think of this example. My friend, she's a doctor. She has her PhD in nursing, and she teaches nursing, and I was hanging out with her in Milwaukee, and she kept saying that she was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Like people, like we were meeting new people, and she kept telling people she was a nurse. And I, like, when I was around her, I'd be like, doctor. And she was like, you sound like my husband, right? Because like she does this a lot. I'm like, you're a doctor, you're not a, right, like you're a doctor of nursing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you downplaying that? Like, be proud of that, be proud of the effort that you put in, and like don't downplay who you are and what you're actually capable of, and how smart you are. And that's just one example, right? Like, you work hard, you get this title, or you earn this thing, and then society is really good at making us feel like we didn't deserve that.
But I think there's something kind of beautiful about that to a
Yeah.
certain degree.
Like humbleness, or like what?
Yeah.
Like,
Like, I don't need a, like, there's this, like, I am who I am. Like, that doesn't define me. Like,
mm-hmm,
what all these, like, it almost, and I don't know her and I wasn't in the interaction, so I don't know how it
yeah.
presents itself. But
Mm-hmm,
there's something I think beautiful about that humbleness, in a sense of like, yeah, I did all these things, but like, that's not who I don't need to be defined by
right.
this placard on my wall. And maybe there's a
Mm-hmm,
relevant time and place for it,
mm-hmm,
And so I see both sides. Like, I totally
yep.
am on board of like, yeah, like, you did this, like, be proud of it. And so
Mm-hmm,
I think it depends where it's coming from. If it's
yes.
coming from a place of um a mentality of like undeserving or whatever it might be, or versus just like, it's a part of me, but it's not who I am, like,
Yeah.
I see it with um like, Andy never says that he's a battalion chief.
Mm-hmm,
Like, when people ask, he just says he works at the fire department or he's a
yeah.
firefighter. And it's not, it's just because it's like, oh, not like, yeah, it's a part of me, but um yeah, I don't know. I kind of
I
see both
I
sides of that. And
I think I see where you're going. Where with like her, it wasn't like you should definitely not be walking around and be like, I'm a doctor. Right? Like,
Yeah.
or like, I'm with Andy, I'm the battalion chief.
Mm-hmm.
Respect me, right? Like, but I think even in Andy's case, like he's discounting himself. And
No, I
right,
don't. I
like,
don't know if I agree. I think we can get so
and
caught
it's
in
not,
who we like our roles.
I'm not saying
And
that it defines you,
yeah.
but it is, right, like it is something that you've worked for many years to become, right? And it's not just about, right, for to become a battalion chief. This is the point of this whole journey thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe he didn't ever have a goal to become a battalion chief. Maybe she didn't ever have become a goal to become a doctor, right? But in time,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that length of time is, right? Let's say, how long has he been a firefighter in South Dakota?
Almost 20 years. Let's not reveal
Okay, so
too much
20.
information. You know, I
Yeah.
like to keep
Okay.
other
Yeah.
people
Yeah. Yeah.
private.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, anyway, so right, like he has this time period, and we can't talk for him either. But right, like there was this time period of getting to that battalion chief. It doesn't just happen, and he had to experience all the things along the way. And now when you're asked, it's not who are you, right? Like I don't feel like it's like, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm a battalion chief. I think, yeah, that's like the wrong context. But who he has and who he's had to become and the journeys that he's had to experience to get to that battalion chief, I don't think it's fair to yourself to disservice the journey and experience that you've had. And I'm not saying that you should be any less humble about it.
mm-hmm.
But Andy's a rad guy. I I like him. Yeah, I know you like him, right? You're biased, right? But and the way that a battalion chief carries himself is way different than the way a day one firefighter carries himself. Um, and the way that a doctor carries themselves is way different than
But why? We
uh,
should have that
a
pride in whatever, like cleaning toilets. If you're gonna clean toilets,
yeah,
like be proud
yeah,
of cleaning toilets. You know, like
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's like it's what we say, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so
yeah,
nothing but the title has changed. I mean, we change and evolve as people, but ultimately we should have that same pride,
yeah,
whether it be day one or day 50 or year 50.
yeah.
You know, like it's the underneath it all. Like one, it's just
Mm-hmm.
label, a label
Yeah.
that maybe reflects time put in and all these things. But what I'm saying is it doesn't change. There's a lot of like incompetent doctors potentially, right?
Yes.
So where is the label? What's the significance of this label?
That's a great question.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
you know, I,
Yeah.
in it, and maybe this is just because I've like changed, you know, I'm sure if you put in so many years into one industry, there, I don't know. No, I don't know. I can't speak to it. I just, I think that it's again like moving beyond. It's who you want to be, no matter what the label is, no matter what the task is, no matter what.
Yeah.
Again, why we say like how you are in your mat, how you are outside in life.
Yeah.
How you
Agreed.
were when you first went into nursing school, and how you are like the essence doesn't change who you are when you've become a doctorate of nursing.
But there is a journey, and there back to the journey.
You love
There
this.
is yeah. I love this journey, right? Like, yeah, I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's just more to it, right? And it goes back to the beginning conversation of yoga of what got you on your mat, and what got you on your mat likely, and I can only speak for myself, is very different than what keeps you on your mat,
Mm-hmm.
right? What got me on my mat was a physical practice. What keeps me on my mat is no longer a physical practice. And the journey of who you become and who I am now is very different. I mean, yes, how you do anything is how you do everything. I'm a big believer in that. But who I am now, I'm so much more accepting of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm so much more accepting of myself. Um, like the way I handle conflict is.
So would that be different if you were labeled something differently? Or would that still be there? Like, so you were, what was your
Yeah,
title? Or
yeah,
maybe you don't want
yeah,
to use your title for.
yeah, yeah. I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I'm
That's a
just,
really good
I'm
point.
pushing by,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
poking the
no, that's a
bear.
really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that you have to like want to change. I don't think the title does matter. I think that you have to want to change and you have to want to be better and right, not respond in a way that, to conflict that is bad.
Yeah, I think
And,
I think what is underlying for a lot of, say, the two examples we've given is a drive for growth. Because I
mm-hmm,
don't even, I steer away from like better,
mm-hmm,
right? It's just different. It's
yeah,
there's a growth and it might be a branch out here and you are growing the branches here. I don't, it's,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, yeah, I think there's the underlying of what got them to where they are. Um, is that the essence of kind of what we're talking about?
yeah. And I think that's the key is what do you want out of life? Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And that drives you towards, in my words, betterment, right? Like, and yeah, like thinking about it, someone who is content, just, and there's nothing wrong if you're flipping burgers, but like someone who's just flipping burgers and doesn't want to grow and doesn't want to change and, but also wants more from that, right? Like they expect more, like from that. I don't think that there's more that can be given from, right, staying small.
Mm. I don't know. I'm kind of on the other side of
You're,
there's
you
like a contentment with like
sure.
for my own life even like I simple like I it's like contentment with like just that constant contentment.
Yes, but you're still not satisfied. I use this all the time.
No,
I'm content, but I'm never satisfied.
I don't agree with that.
I think, from my perspective on
Mm-hmm.
you,
Yeah.
now I'm analyzing you because this is what we do on the show.
Yeah.
We analyze each other and we call each other out on our bullshit.
Yeah.
But that's why we're friends. But right, like I think that right, like you have so much to give to the world and you realize that and you're continuing to give more and you're looking to find ways to do that better. Right. And that's why you're going to 800-hour yoga therapy and that's why you're taking these classes. Right? Because if you were just content and satisfied, you wouldn't do any of those things. You would just be like, yeah, I'm just staying right here. I'm
No,
not going to grow.
why is that? Why would I don't feel I'm not doing the 800-hour because I'm not satisfied with where I am. I could actually
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about not even completing it and just I'm like, "Oh, I've gained a lot. Like
Yeah.
I can do what I'm
Yes.
doing." Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
So why do you keep going forward?
I haven't decided that yet. No, I really. I mean,
I love
I've
that.
just been
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna take it day by day, like, and
Hmm.
I more than likely will finish it.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't need to,
Yeah.
and I'm not.
Yes.
There's no dissatisfaction. I'm not.
No.
I'm completely satisfied. Like I could be where I am and just, yeah.
I
I
also think
enjoy
that you.
learning, like,
Yeah.
but the learning isn't out of a dissatisfaction. The learning is because I enjoy learning
Hmm.
and gaining new tools, and I'm
And being able to give back.
curious, and
Yeah.
but it's from a place of contentment. There's no for a long time there was a lack. It was a
Hmm.
dissatisfaction that there was a lack that needed to be filled, and that doesn't exist anymore.
Mm.
And that's why I don't feel like I don't, the term better, I don't think I'm any better. I'm just pursuing different pieces.
Mm.
Like, right? I'm no better than you because I decided I'm doing an 800-hour therapy, because I have these certificates, because I have these things.
You're no better than me, but you're better than who you are. And
I don't know.
because of that, you can make the world a better place
I
by
think we're
what you
our
serve
best
and what you.
every time. Like, if we could be better, we would be better. Like, if I could be better than right now, I would be better. But I can't be better than I am. I'm at my best. We're
It's a
at
little
our
funny.
best every moment.
Yes, yeah, and you keep adding to your pot, or you keep growing your cup to take more in,
Or
and
lesson.
you're.
That's what.
Or yeah,
That's the yoga
yes,
for me. Less,
yes,
less,
yes, yeah,
less.
less. But
Simple, simple.
right, but what we realize is less is more, right?
Mm.
Like, um, but yeah, I think I hear what you're saying, and I think that we are at our best in this moment, and then we're also growing and adding to it, and becoming better. I'm not trying to convince you that right, better is your word, better is my word,
Yeah.
right? But I think we are at our best in this moment, and yet we still strive to be better, because like what I know of you is you want to serve others and you want to make the world around you a better place, and you do that. You make my life better, and it's because of, if you just if this is,
Oh.
yeah, if you just accepted
We
what
might
is,
need to.
I'll say it.
This
Yeah,
might.
we might need to just come back to this,
Yeah.
right? Like, uh, yeah, like you. Yeah, I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
I think we have
It's a
to.
deep conversation.
Yeah,
It's a deep
because
conversation.
heard the word accept. We
Except,
talked
yeah,
about that
yeah, yeah,
earlier.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And there's
it's
that,
whoa.
and that's what I love, right? Like that's why we have these conversations, is because
Yeah.
we get to think out loud. Like, it's embracing, not resisting, right? Like oftentimes we make up these. Let's have these conversations. Let's be wrong
Yeah, let's question ourselves. Let's question
ourselves.
others. Let's
Yes.
get
Let's
caught up
see
in
the.
words that are saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see the hypocrisy in our own thoughts,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're all fucking human. We're all on this journey. I'm gonna keep using journey. We're all on this journey, this experience together,
We are. I
right?
agree.
Like,
We're on a journey.
yeah.
I'm just,
Yes. Yep.
you know.
So yeah, I think this is an episode of deep reflection. I'm gonna be excited to come back and listen to this one. I don't listen to our episodes because, yeah.
Because I don't live in the past.
Right. Yeah, I accept what is, but I don't, because I'm trying to be better. But anyway, I am gonna re-listen to this one because there's a lot that we've talked about.
A lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm. Shall we breathe?
Yeah. All right. Oh, as always, an invitation to close your eyes if it's possible. And if not, just Soften the gaze and allow your attention to be drawn inward. And just take a moment to be fully absorbed in the range of sensations you feel in your body without labeling them, without needing them to be different, just observing what you feel through the whole body. Noticing any areas that the sensations feel more prominent, that might be capturing your attention more. And then shift attention into an area that is not as loud. And just notice what you feel here. And shift into another area. And notice as you shift your attention, if you naturally stay there or return to a different area or back to an area of strong sensation, just observe the natural movement of attention within the body. Whether the attention is calm and steady or constantly moving, just accept it. And take a deep breath in. And then slow down your exhale as you breathe out. And notice if anything's changed from that one simple breath. And whether it's changed or not, just be with it as it is. And stay connected to this inner attunement, this inner awareness, as you slowly flutter your eyes open. And as you open your eyes, see if you can still feel the sensations in the body as you add outside stimulus.
Thanks, Bree. Journal prompt. Grab your journals, your diaries, whatever it is that you want to write in. We talked about a lot today. This is an easy one. Just write about your thoughts. Right? Write it all down. Get it all on paper. It doesn't have to be coherent sentences. Just, if you think of a word, write it down. Right? Let it be a jumbled mess and accept it for what it is. Right? Because it's perfect. You're perfect. You're whole. You're complete. I'll end this the way I end a lot of my yoga classes. We don't practice yoga to become perfect. We practice yoga to realize that we already are.
That's beautiful.
Thanks. Good talking to you.
Yeah. Until next time.